5 powerhouse cartridges that dominate predator and varmint hunting. Speed, precision, and sure stopping power. And we're going to give you the 411 today, so buckle up. Hi everybody, welcome to LocaCarnivore. Glad you could join us today. That's right, we're talking predator and varmint hunting, and especially the top 5 cartridges to get that job done. And well, it's spring now and we're coming up on summer. There's not a lot to hunt really. I mean, there's no, big game seasons are pretty much closed till fall. We might have maybe, depending on where you're at, you might have had a spring bear season or something, and that's either gone or about to end depending on when you're viewing this video and where you're at. So that leaves the question, well, what the heck do you hunt in order to keep your marksmanship and your hunting skills sharp for the next big game season in the fall? Well, I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than knocking down a few predators and varmints. And there's a good reason to knock back the population of some of these species. They do a lot of damage, like fields and stuff get all dug up by prairie dogs. In the northwest, it's the Columbian ground squirrel, colloquially known as gophers. And then you've got marmots, groundhogs, all sorts of critters like that that burrow. And the burrow holes themselves can disable and maim livestock. Cattle, horses, whatever, can snap legs when they step in them. People can step in them and get hurt too. Not only that, but they carry disease. Prairie dogs, yellow-bellied marmots, and the Columbian ground squirrels are notorious for having and harboring bubonic plague as well as a host of other diseases which can be transmitted to either humans or livestock. So it's a really good thing to knock these guys down just a little bit and keep them under control. And then we're talking coyotes. When we get to predators, coyotes, wolves, they're a little bit different thing, and they're treated as a big game species, so they usually have their own unique season. I'm not going to touch on wolves at all, but coyotes particularly. You've also got other just noxious animals like skunks, raccoons, the trash pandas. They're disease carriers, they're rabid half the time, and they get into all sorts of stuff. They cause so much trouble and so much property damage. And like I said, they carry rabies, so if you get bit, or more importantly, like your kids accidentally get bit, there's a big problem right there. And coyotes, well, if you're a deer hunter, you need to be knocking down coyotes in the summer, in the spring especially, because what do coyotes specialize in? Eating deer fawns. They are really good at it, and they really have a big impact on the deer population, particularly whitetails. So if you want to have enough deer to hunt year in and year out, you better be dropping a few yotes. Now, what kind of cartridge and rifle should you be using for predator and varmint control? Well, it's really critical. Cartridge selection is very important in this. You could take your deer rifle out, I suppose, and use it on at least coyotes and things like that. But when you're talking those really small animals like the prairie dogs and the gophers and things like that, even marmots, cartridge selection really plays a big role in this. We don't need something that's super powerful. I mean, we don't need to go out with our 300 Winchester Magnum or 7 Rem Mag or something like that. That's definitely overpowered. And I'm usually a big fan of having a lot of power on target, but in this case, you need to tone it down a bit. And we need something that is flat shooting, because quite often you're going to be taking these shots at, depending on where you live and where you hunt. If you're out in the Midwest or the West particularly, your shots are going to be at least 100 yards and quite often 200, 300, even 400 yards. So we need something that's flat shooting but still delivers enough power to get the job done. If you can hit with precision on a prairie dog that's about that tall, or a marmot that's about that big, and you can whack them at 300 or 400 yards, think how effective you're going to be on deer or elk. So it's really good practice. So the cartridge selection, like I said, is paramount. So we want something that is flat shooting. That means high velocity, and we're generally we don't want a lot of recoil, because we might be out, if you've got a big field of gophers or prairie dogs or something like that, you might fire 50, even 100 rounds in a session, in an afternoon or something to knock these rascals down. I'm counting the fact you're going to miss once in a while. That's a lot of rounds. You really don't want something that's thumping you to death in the shoulder to where you need a chiropractor after each shooting session. Hey, before we get rolling in the video, I got to ask you a big favor. YouTube's gone and done it again. They have changed their algorithm a few months ago, and everybody that produces hunting and gun type content is feeling the pinch. Whatever they did is really pushing us down hard. I mean, even, heavy hitters like Hickok 45, he put out a video not too long ago where he said his revenue has dropped tremendously, as well as other people in the industry that he's talked to that run some of the really big channels. Even they are seeing a big decline in views and revenue. So whatever they did at YouTube, we need to fight back. So if you want to continue to see 2A type content, about guns, hunting, stuff like that, you need to support us. This video, please share it. The only way to really resist is to share the video, and the more viewers we get and the more revenue we generate, the more YouTube will realize that they were wrong by trying to push us back down again, and hopefully they'll let us out and let us do our job. So it's up to you. Please share the video. Since cartridge selection is so important when it comes to varmint and predator hunting, we decided to help you figure out which cartridge to pick. So we come up with 5 of the best cartridges. We're going to count them down from the number 5 all the way down to number 1. So you need to stay with us till the end of the video to find out what that number 1 choice is. So let's get rolling here. And of course, give us a big like on the video. We would certainly appreciate your support. Hit that thumbs up. Also, we want you on the LocaCarnivore team. Please subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell when you do subscribe so you won't miss any of our great videos. Well, coming in at number 5, I put the 308 Winchester. Now everybody scratches their head, go, 308, that's a deer cartridge. What would you be doing with predator control and things like that? Well, I'll tell you what, it's actually an excellent multi-purpose cartridge. And the 308 is very versatile. You can get lighter bullet weights like 130s, even 110s, things like that. I recommend those just staying with the 150 grain. And if we're talking particularly coyotes and you want to keep the hide, you're going to use them for commercial purposes or your own use, whatever. You want to not rip that hide up. So you're going to want I just use 150 grain full metal jacket, just standard, military ball ammo. It is fantastic because it's got more than enough energy to end Mr. Coyote's day and give him a bad time and drop him right in his tracks. But it doesn't, unlike like a ballistic tip or something like that, it doesn't grenade the thing. It doesn't rip out a big exit hole or something like that. Now, if you're not interested in keeping the hides and you just want to, drop them, take care of business, then you want a very expansive bullet, a ballistic tip or something like that. Go with maybe about a 130 grain, something like that range or so, but you can also do a 150. In fact, if you're using ballistic tips for your deer hunting, that's a perfect thing for coyote hunting, assuming you don't want that hide back. Let's take a quick look at the ballistics of the 308 and see what makes it so good. Well, that ubiquitous universal 150 grain bullet generally will go out the muzzle at 2,800 feet per second or so. And if you went down to like a lower weight bullet, like a 130, that's going to go out the door at about 3,100 feet per second, again from a 24-inch barrel. All these velocities I'm going to put out are based on 24-inch barrels. So if you're using a shorter barrel, like with a suppressor, like maybe an 18-inch or a carbine with a 16-inch or something like that, you're going to get less velocity, so you'll get more drop, a little less effective range and whatnot. But just you can just do the math on that very quickly on your own, or just get your chronograph out and figure out what it's going to be. But nominally, those are the velocities. Now your drop, surprisingly enough, the drop is pretty consistent. Generally about, depending on bullet weight, 7 to 8 inches at 300 yards with a 200-yard zero. And I'm always going to talk 200-yard zero because let's face it, like I said earlier, you're going to be shooting generally longer ranges at most of these animals. So let's just zero at 200. And call it good from there. So that gives us an indication of what kind of long-range trajectory we're going to get. And at 300 yards, a 7 to 8 inch drop, that's not too bad at all. It's going to be further at 400, etc. And wind drift is pretty manageable as well. So it's a great performing cartridge. 308 ammo is available just about everywhere. Can't say enough about that 308 for varmint and predator control. The cartridge that came in at number 4, the 22-250 Remington. This thing is a hauler. It fires a 22 caliber bullet, obviously, and it is going to give you a lot of speed, a lot of velocity. Now, the 22-250 is regarded and has been regarded for a very long time as one of the best, if not the premier, varmint cartridge. Now, other cartridges have come along since then, and quite frankly, they have supplanted the 22-250. So, modern technology marches on, as they say. It's still a very good cartridge, but it's at number 4 mainly because of the ammo availability. The other cartridges that came in higher placed than the 22-250 did so mainly because of ammunition availability, or in at least one case, the fact it's just such a technically outstanding cartridge. The 22-250 is a very versatile cartridge. It's got more than enough wallop to down a coyote at any reasonable range. Yet it is very precise, it's an accurate cartridge, and it doesn't have too much drop, so it's flat shooting, which makes it really spot on for the smaller varmints like the groundhogs and prairie dogs, things like that. And the recoil is super light, so you can shoot the thing all day long and, again, not need a chiropractor and an ice pack when you're done. Now let's talk about the numbers with the 22-250. As you can see on the chart here, it does pretty well. The lighter bullet weight's like a 40 grain bullet. It's going to go out the muzzle at 4,200 feet per second. And then when you move up to a 50 grain, you're going to be at 3950 or so. 55 grain, 3780, and a 60 to 64 grain is going to be right in that 3,500 feet per second. With the 60 grain, you're going to get a little more velocity, so maybe like 3550, 3560, something like that. Drop on this thing for almost all the weights, about 4 to 6 inches at 300 yards, again with that 200 yard zero. So this thing is a really flat shooting little beast. A really good cartridge, and it's very good for reaching out and grabbing Mr. Groundhog or Mr. Prairie Dog when you didn't think you could get to him. Now the number 3 cartridge is brand new. It was just released this year in 2025. By the way, we do need your support on a Patreon. We do have a Patreon, so please go down the links in the description. Please go over there and show us a little consideration, a little love. We'd appreciate your help. And also, if you're looking for more content, we have a website, LocaCarnivore.com. And while you're over there checking that out, don't forget to hit the little store tab at the top of your screen, and you can get in there and get some fantastic LocaCarnivore merchandise. All right, number 3 on our hit parade, our varmint hit parade, is brand new for 2025, just released by Hornady, which is the 25 Creedmoor. So this thing is right between the 6mm Creedmoor, the 6 Creedmoor if you will, and the 6.5 Creedmoor. And this thing's designed to take advantage of the newer high ballistic coefficient bullets that have come out in the 25 caliber. It hits heavy enough and handles heavy enough bullet weights. You could use it even for deer-sized animals or, antelope, pronghorn, something like that. Be a good cartridge for that. Anything you might want to use the 25-06 for, you could use the 25 Creedmoor, except for out at longer ranges on the larger animals. But since we're talking predators and varmints, the lower power level and hence the lower recoil really comes into the favor of the 25 Creedmoor over the 25-06 for this job. Still plenty of power for coyotes, but it shoots flat and it's a reasonable choice for taking care of smaller varmints as well. Now, as of right now, as far as I'm aware, the only ammo you can get from the 25 Creedmoor is from Hornady. They have 2 bullet selections, a 128 grain and a 134 grain. The 128 grain nominal velocity on that is 2850, and the 134 grain only loses 50 feet per second, so they're calling that at 2800 feet per second as well, which is pretty good. It's got lots of zip on it. Again, it's a smidge slower than a 25-06, but for the application and the ranges we're talking about, it's really not a big deal. Hyper accurate cartridge like any of the Creedmoors tend to be, and very light recoil. The drop on this thing is right at about 7 inches for either bullet weight, so it shoots pretty flat. It's not as flat as a 25-06, but correction, it's not quite as flat as a 22-250. But it's still flat enough to get the job done. It's got a good trajectory, very usable trajectory. And will it replace the 25-06? Probably not. The 25-06 has been around forever, and it's a wonderful cartridge, and people aren't going to give that up very readily, especially if you need a little more power for deer and stuff out at longer ranges. But for the varmint roll, that 25 Creedmoor looks like it's going to be a really good choice. Okay, rolling into the number 2 cartridge that we picked out. 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, you folks that are my subscribers and who follow my channel, all 10,000 of you, we finally crossed the 10,000 mark just a few days ago. Thank you so much. Let's keep it rolling. Let's just make this thing a powerhouse, would you? Now, those of you, like I said, who've been watching me for a long time, you know my general opinion of the 6.5 Creedmoor. In fact, you're scratching your head going, LocaCarnivore, what the heck? You hate the 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, I don't hate it. I just think it's overrated for some applications. However, when it comes to predator control, it is a spot-on little beast. It shoots very flat, as you all know. It is just stupidly accurate. It's boringly accurate, as I've heard some people express it. So it's a very accurate cartridge. The recoil is very light for the bullet weights it's throwing. It's quite light, so you can shoot it all day. And the reason I put it above the 25 Creedmoor is now the 25 Creedmoor has just been introduced, so we don't know how much traction it's going to get. And with only 2 bullet choices from one manufacturer, that knocks it down a bit as far as ammo availability versus 6.5 Creedmoor. Plenty of ammo out there. It's a very accepted cartridge, very popular now. And so you're not going to have any trouble. And you can get the lighter bullet weights with varmint-oriented type bullets in them. So really good choice there. It's plenty of power for coyotes. You could use it on wolf during wolf season. I wouldn't hesitate to use it with the proper bullet weight on wolf. And of course, you can take it deer hunting when, the season rolls around, and used correctly at a good reasonable range, it's fine for elk and moose and things like that. So it's got that versatility to it. So you could if you just only need one rifle and you have to do everything, predators, deer, even larger game animals, that Creedmoor is actually a pretty good choice. I just poo-poo it because of the fanboys that are just over the top about the thing. But like I said, great cartridge for varmints. Now let's look at the numbers on this thing real quick. Well, as you can see on the chart there, a 120 grain bullet, which would be outstanding for yotes and things like that, and it's okay for groundhogs and stuff like that, marmots. 2,900 feet per second, and then a 127 grain is going to go out the door at 2850 or so, which isn't bad. And if you have 140 grain, that's your deer load, but you want to use it for yotes, no problem. 2,700 feet per second. And interestingly enough, across those bullet weights, your drop is about 7 to 8 inches at 300 yards with that ubiquitous 200 yard zero. So this thing is a really good flat shooting cartridge. It's certainly as flat as anything else, and it is better than the 308 for this role, in my opinion. I like the 308 better for overall hunting, but for this role, the varmint and predator control, it's outstanding because of the lighter recoil compared to the 308. So it does so many things so well, frankly. So that's 6.5 Creedmoor. Let's go with that as number 2. All right, and here's our bonus section for you. We're going to talk about pairing these cartridges to a particular rifle. What are the good rifle choices? We're just going to touch on this fairly briefly. And we'll just kind of count back down from the number 5 down to the number 1 real quick. Across the board, though, I will say you can use a bolt-action rifle. In fact, that's probably going to be the preferred platform for these. In 308, any decent rifle that's got good accuracy, and I'm not big on naming brands. I don't have any deals with any of the brands. I don't have any sponsors, at least not yet. But anything, Savage, Remington, Sig, Bergara, any of those guns, Tikka, any of those Browning, any of the big manufacturers, you're going to get a quality rifle. Just pick what fits you best and what you like as far as features and stuff like that, and just roll with it. Lever actions, you're not going to get lever actions in most of these cartridges, quite frankly, so that's kind of off the board. You can go with single shots like Thompson Center Contenders or something like that. Those aren't bad. Or Ruger number 1, not a bad choice if you like the single shots. But let's face it, if we're doing repeaters, particularly if we're going after like just a big field of prairie dogs or something like that, I think the semi-auto is going to be the way to go. And you get 2 choices, basically the Ruger ranch rifle type setup, something like that, that's based on the modified sort of M1 Garand action, or an AR platform. And frankly, my experience with the Rugers, they tend to not be they've gotten better, but they tend not to be as accurate, particularly as accurate as a good AR gun that's set up correctly. And so we're going to go with ARs for especially the 5.56, i.e. the 223. And you can get ARs going to the AR-10 platform, and that's for 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, available in an AR-10 type platform. Again, a really good platform, easy to suppress, easy to put optics on. If you're allowed to hunt them at night, you can put thermal on there. you know, all sorts of good stuff. Can't say enough about the AR type platform. And again, just get it from a good quality manufacturer, or if you're really good at putting them together yourself, you know, roll your own and have at it. But that would be my suggestion for that. 25 Creedmoor bolt gun. I'd really go with the bolt gun. There are actually quite a few. If you go to Hornady's website, they have a listing of manufacturers that are chambering for the 25 Creedmoor now. And it's quite extensive, so there's a good choice of rifles there. And again, any solid brand, any good brand that's noted for its accuracy and its quality will set you up just fine. And for the 22-250, again, it's going to be a bolt gun. There might be some ARs out there chambered for that. I don't know. If you know, go down in the comments and let me know about it. Again, we do like all your comments. And by the way, what's your choice for predator and varmint control? What's your #1 choice? Do you agree with the ones that we came up with? If not, let us know what you like. And if you do like them, tell us why. Love that. Keep that conversation going. Also part of our bonus section here, let's discuss real quick what cartridges are best for what hunting environment. And we already talked about rifles to pair them up with, but what should you pick for where you are? If you are in heavily wooded country like you are in the eastern United States or the southeastern United States or parts of the Midwest where it's heavily forested, particularly in the spring and the summer, you got all that deciduous cover and everything. Frankly, your shots aren't going to be that far at most of these critters, you know, especially coyotes and stuff like that. You're going to have to call them in real close. And so I would say the 308, because that can, or at 6.5 Creedmoor. Excellent choices. Those can also double as your deer rifle for deer season, so you don't need more than one gun, and you can handle both projects with just maybe a change up in ammo, and maybe not even, depending on what type of bullet you like for deer and stuff like that. So those would be my choices. And the 223 Remington, it will work anywhere, frankly. So it's another good choice, and you put it in an AR platform with like a 16-inch barrel or an 18-inch barrel, so it's a really handy carbine. That would be outstanding in heavy cover, in my opinion, because you got high rate of fire if you need it. You got quick follow-up shots and plenty of power to get the job done, but light recoil, and you can carry plenty of ammo with you too. It's just, you know, a really good setup. So that's what I would recommend for that type of area. Now, we move out into the western United States or in the prairie areas of the Midwest, and for that stuff, you're going to want that reach. You're going to need that flatter trajectory. So your big choices there, 22-250, 25 Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, or the 223. All right, here's your reward for staying with us all the way through. Our #1 cartridge for predator and varmint hunting, 223 Remington. It's just such a good round. I mean, yeah, it's been around since the early 1960s. Fantastic round. Is it as fast as a 22-250? Not quite, but it doesn't need to be. It shoots a reasonable weight bullet for coyotes and things like that, and it is not overly done for the smaller things in life out there. You know, the prairie dogs and stuff like that. You can shoot prairie dogs with this thing if you want. The reason it's #1 is because of the popularity. The ammo for this thing is everywhere. I don't care where you could go, you can find a box of 223 ammo, and particularly in that very popular 55 grain loading. And that's just an outstanding load for everything. It does wonders on coyotes. And again, I like that full metal jacket if I want the hide, but if not, plenty of little varmint grenades out there, you know, VMAXs, ballistic tips, you name it, things that'll just absolutely drop Mr. Yote in his tracks, and he's not going to want to play anymore. Just nice dirt nap for Mr. Coyote. And it's, like I said, it's not too heavy for doing prairie dogs and whatnot. It'll just absolutely take care of them. You don't even need to go with an expanding bullet. The 55 grain is more than adequate on those smaller animals. It just, you know, starts to tumble almost immediately, and that's the end of Mr. Marmot or Mr. Prairie Dog's day. So let's talk the numbers here on the 223 Remington. That ubiquitous 55 grain bullet is going to go out the door at 3250 feet per second, and that's with a 20-inch barrel. Going to get a little more velocity with a 24-inch. If you're going short, like with a 16-inch barrel or something, you can expect to be right around about 3,000 feet per second, give or take, maybe 30, 50, something like that. So you're going to lose some velocity, but it's still running pretty good. And then your drop here, absolutely really good flat shooting. And this will be out of the 24-inch barrel. So you're talking about 8 inches of drop at 300 yards, and then 21 inches at 400 yards. And amazingly, that 8-inch drop, give or take half an inch or so, maybe to an inch, is it's the same for all the most popular bullet weights: 55 grain, 62 grain, even the 75 grain. Really a good, outstanding round. As I said, the 223, it's so popular, the ammo's so available, shoots more than flat enough to get the job done, plenty of power to get the job done, even at extended ranges. However, there's one bugaboo about the 223 that we do need to talk about, and that is rifling twist rate. Well, what is rifling twist rate? Well, as you know, rifling is grooves run down the barrel that impart a spin to the bullet, and then the rate is a measure of how far down the barrel in inches does the bullet go in order to make one complete revolution. So if you have like a 1 in 10, that means the bullet makes one complete revolution in 10 inches of barrel length. So when we talk the 223 Remington, twist rate is really critical for good performance to stabilize these bullets. About a 1 in 9 or even a 1 in 8 is considered a pretty sort of universal. It'll do fine on the 55 grains, but we need a fast rate on the heavier bullet weights like the 62, particularly with the 75 grain type bullets. So 1 in 7 is going to be preferred with that. And if you've got an older, like an old AR or something that's got a slower rate than that, you're going to have to stick probably to that 55 grain load, because that slower rate, anything slower than 1 in 9, was designed for that original 55 grain load in a 20-inch barrel. So even with a 24-inch, you're going to have to think about that. So if you have any doubts about twist rate, just go faster. 1 in 9, 1 in 8, 1 in 7. And that way you can handle the 55 grain bullets pretty well. But if you want to go with the heavier bullets, and for varmint use, the heavier bullets really, I think, are a good way to go. But again, the 55 grain, it is the load, and it is what most guns are designed to shoot. So if you get that 1 in 9 or so, that'll be fine with that. And it'll still work with a 62 grain bullet. Not a problem there. Well, there you go. The top 5 most potent Predator and Varmint centerfire cartridges. Thanks for spending your valuable time here with us at LocaCarnivore today. We do appreciate it. And as always, I want to remind you, and I'm looking at you, George Lucas, we all know that Han shot first. Thanks for watching.